Let's now have a look at how to calculate WIP in Business Central. And to show you this, I've created 4 new jobs. Now, these are really very simple jobs. If you look at the job task lines, you will see only a few task lines with round amounts, so very simple. And I know that a job in real life is never that simple. But I think to get a feeling, to get familiar with the WIP calculation in Business Central, it helps to keep your jobs, your examples, as simple as possible. And once that you're familiar with the calculation, it doesn't really matter in real life if your job has 2 or 20 or 200 planning lines. So for that reason, again, very simple jobs. And you will see that I've set them up in the same way as my examples on the slide, on the presentation in the previous unit. So each of these 4 jobs has 2 planning lines, 2 task lines, time and material. And so for time, I have a budget of 10 hours of Steven. So when Steven has a cost of 100 and a price of 150. And for material, I also created a very simple budget. So there I have 1 planning line of the paint black and with the same amounts. Also 10 units, the cost is 100 and the price 150. All right, so I've created 2 jobs that calculate WIP based on costs and 2 based on sales. So let's quickly look at the job cards. So and for the examples based on WIP calculation based on cost, I have used percentage of completion. So the other method that you could use here is sales value, but because in my experience percentage of completion is used quite often in real life, I also would like to use it for these examples. So the same goes for number 2, but the difference between number 1 and number 2, just like my examples on the presentation, is that there's a percentage completed of 20 for number 1, and we didn't invoice the customer yet for number 1. But if we look at number 2, you will see exactly the same except for the invoice percentage. So here we already send an invoice of 50%, but also this one is set up with percentage of completion. If we look at the 2 jobs that use sales to calculate the WIP, then you will see here that I have used cost of sales. The other method that you could use here is cost value, but in this case my examples are set up with cost of sales. And here you will see that the first one has an invoiced percentage of 50 and there's no consumption yet. And then for the second one, you see that the consumption is 80% and the invoiced percentage is 50. So that's what I've set up. So that's my preparation for these examples. Now, if you scroll down, you see the WIP and Recognition Fast tab. So at the left side, you can see the amounts to post, so calculated but not posted yet. And if they're posted to the general ledger, they will appear at the right side. Now, all these amounts are still 0, which means that we didn't calculate the WIP so far. Now, that's something that you can do from several places. I could go to WIP here, and I can easily run the calculate WIP function from a job card. And then you see, of course, that Business Central filters on the job. The same happens when you calculate the WIP from the job list, but you could also very easily go to the search function and run the job calculate WIP function. All right. And then, of course, the filter is not entered, but in this case, I only would like to include my example jobs. So number 40 to, let's enter this manually, number 70. All right. Okay, the posting date is also very important, but I posted everything on the work date. But in real life, of course, you typically would use the end date of a month or maybe a quarter or a year. But we can perfectly stick to this posting dates. You could also filter on planning date and posting date, but I will leave these fields blank to include everything that is planned and posted to these jobs. All right, let's run the WIP calculation. All right, so everything is successfully calculated. And okay, you could preview the amounts by clicking on yes, and then Business Central will bring you to the next task, which is posting the WIP to the GL. But that's something that we will cover in the following unit. So instead, I would like to have a look at the job card. So let me open the first job. And if I scroll down, you will see again 20% completed, nothing invoiced. So and now if you scroll down, you can see here that the total WIP sales amount is 600. So we have a recognized cost of 400, yeah. So based on the 20%, because we didn't invoice the job yet, everything is now posted as WIP sales minus 600, which means that the recognized sales amount is also 600, and that currently we have a profit of 200, even though we didn't invoice the job to the customer yet. But this is the result of the WIP recognition for the first job. Then if we go to the next job, there you will see that there is a positive WIP amount. So the first one had a negative WIP amount, and that's of course because we already invoiced more than we consumed. So we already invoiced 50%, which means that Business Central will post negative WIP to the sales account. So that at the end, we also have the same profit and the same recognized sales and cost amount. You see, so that's what I meant at the beginning of my explanation. WIP is sort of a leverage between costs and revenue based on the percentage. In this case, the percentage of completion, so the 20% in these jobs.